Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. Are you guys surprised to see me 2 days in a row? I'm surprised to be over here 2 days in a row, and actually this is my second video of the day that I'm filming, and I'll get to that in just a second. I usually wait to film my my booktube channel last, and that's sometimes why I only post 3 to 4 videos over here a month. But this month, I'm going to try to change things up a little bit. I'm going to try to start filming over here first, so that these are some of the first videos that I'm filming throughout the day. It's hard when you got 7 channels. When you got 7 channels, unless you film on all 7 channels every single day, which sometimes I do. When you have 7 channels, you have to kind of like figure out your timing, you know, and as far as all that kind of stuff. But anyway, if you didn't watch my video yesterday, I had so much fun with that video. I did a video where I talked about the 13 mystery thrillers, Christmas mystery thrillers that I am going to be reading this season. I went through a list of all of the best Christmas and mystery thrillers that are out there right now, and I picked 13 that 2 of which I have in front of me, 13 that I think are really, really good, okay? And so I also have a huge book haul that I want to do, but I'm still waiting for books to come, so that video will be coming later in the week when all the books are here. They're actually James Patterson books, and I'll explain that in just a second. But last night, so for those of you that do not watch my vlog, I've been talking a lot about this on my vlog. I have really been struggling lately emotionally. Our little dog Boo Radley passed away about a month ago, and it's just what my therapist calls combined grief. And I am really struggling with a lot of anxiety, situational depression, things like that, and I'm just really struggling. I'm really having a hard time right now. And so everybody around me is like, self-care, 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 right? And, you know, I said to my doctor, because I went to the doctor, and, you know, he was like, all the symptoms that you're having, because I was having physical symptoms as a result of the stress, anxiety, and the situational depression, and he was like, all the things you're having, like, I see with people that go through heartbreak, and breakups, and job loss, and change in their life, and loss, you know, when people pass away, or dogs and cats pass away, and things like that. And so, you know, he really focused on self-care. And my therapist has been focusing on self-care. My husband, my best friend, and my sponsor, and everybody has been talking about self-care. And I even said this to my doctor. I said, and I've said it to other people as well, I can tell anybody in the world how to do self-care, but when it comes to me, like, I have no idea what self-care looks like. Unless I'm in it, I don't really know what it feels like, right? Okay, so every night, I usually take a nap late, and then I get up and I watch my TV shows. And recently, I have been, like, what I do is, like, before I lay down and take my nap, I trim the wicks on my candles, and so that when I get up, I can just, like, throw the wax melts in the wax melt burner, and then I can light the candles. There's, like, 6 candles that I light, and then make a cup of coffee. I already fill the tank up in the Keurig, so I can make a cup of coffee, and I can sit down and I can watch my shows. Well, I started a couple nights ago reading the 25 Days book by Per Jacobson, and I've talked about this in so many videos. I'm not going to talk about it again. I even linked it in my video yesterday, but it's basically an advent calendar book. So you read a chapter a day, every single day, right? And so I started this the other day. Well, I had already started reading Maximum Ride, okay, this James Patterson book, and I'll get to this in just a second. But last night, right after I got done filming my booktube video yesterday, where I even talked about this book, right afterwards I went outside and this package had come. And it's another advent calendar book, and it's called Xmas Break, okay? Both of them I linked in my video yesterday, if you want to go over there and check it out. So anyway, so last night I got up from my nap, and I have all 3 of these books sitting on the counter, okay? And I was like, so the night before this one had come, I would read the chapter for this, like I think it was the first 2 nights I did this, and then I would read Maximum Ride. Starting on Sunday, I went back and started it over. Starting on Sunday, I was like, I looked at how many chapters are in the book, and I was like, okay, I can finish this book in a week if I read 20 chapters a day. And so I was like, I'm going to read 20 chapters a day. So for example, I'm on chapter 42. I've been doing that every single night. Okay. So I had both of these books on the counter. And so the night before and the night before that, I would read the chapter in this, and then I would read the 20 chapters in this. And I have this little thing that I use around my neck so I can sit in the dark, and I have this, you guys know, like the book lights and stuff like that, and the reading lights. And the candles were going, and I was so cozy and so relaxed. Well, last night, I got this one. So I had to catch up on 3 chapters of this because at midnight, starts a new day. So like on this one, you can see I'm going into chapter 4 right here. And so I read the first 3 of these. I read the chapter on this one, and then I read 20 chapters of this. And I was sitting there, and I got up, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I felt so calm and so content. And I had been, telling my doctor, my therapist and stuff that I can be sitting at 3 o'clock in the morning watching a TV show, completely relaxed, candles lit, and I still feel like I'm coming out of my skin. Like, that's how bad my anxiety's been. And I still feel like I'm coming out of my skin. And so last night, this was a different feeling for me. I felt so relaxed and so calm. And there was a moment where I was just kind of like sitting there, and I was reading Maximum Ride by James Patterson. And I was like, it took me back to a place in time where I was very calm and relaxed in life. It reminded me of a time. So for years and years and years on this channel, I have dogged the James Patterson books, okay? So let me tell you about my history with James Patterson. My very first James Patterson book, I read them out of order. My very first James Patterson book was the Kiss the Girls, the Alex Cross novel, okay? And it's actually the second book in the series. The first one is Along Came a Spider. The second one is Kiss the Girls. And I can remember reading Kiss the Girls. Now, the first, 2 or 3, James Patterson really did right. Now, if you don't know about James Patterson now, he has very formulaic writing. He has, a pattern that he writes from. He always picks somebody else to write the books. They come up with the idea, he slaps his name on it. It's a selling machine, okay? That's not to say that they're all bad, but they're quick reads. There's not a lot of depth. There's not a lot of character development. I mean, let's be real. It's not literature, okay? It's just, it's Pulp Fiction is what it is. It's literally Pulp Fiction, okay? But back in the day when I started those books, I loved the James Patterson books. And I was telling a story the other night on my vlog that I can remember when my friend Tanya and I, we would go to a meeting, and then we would go to the grocery store on the way home to get snacks and whatever, or whatever groceries she needed. And then we would always get a new book. We would sometimes both of us get the new James Patterson because he releases a book a week. No, he really does. He'll release a book every 2 months. So we would either both get the new James Patterson hardback, okay? Or she would get a Daniel Steele or Jackie Collins or something like that. But we would always, and I would get a David Baldacci or a Dean Koontz. And then we would sometimes go to her backyard, and she'd make a fire pit or whatever. And we both sit side by side, drinking coffee or fountain pops. And we would just sit reading side by side. Or we would go home to our prospective homes. And I'd go home and, sit there and I would just read 30 chapters, in an hour. And just tear into this book. And it was a period of my life that I never listened. I mean, the only we'll get to audiobooks in just a second, but I didn't really listen to a lot of audiobooks. I read physical copy books voraciously. I probably read 300 a year, in all honesty. And I just read anything that I could get my hands on. But it was mostly because my college degree was in English. I kind of stopped reading a lot of the really important literature to read. And I just wanted to read a lot of Pulp Fiction, exciting stories, things that were fun to read. So recently, my friend Tanya told me about the show on Prime called Cross, about Alex Cross. It's based on the Alex Cross novels by James Patterson. And at first I was like, I think this is going to be really cheesy. In all honesty, I don't love the Morgan Freeman Alex Cross movies, like Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider. I don't love those movies. I don't think that it's whatever. So anyway, I was kind of apprehensive about it. But I ended up watching the series, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. The guy that plays Alex Cross is exactly what I imagined Alex Cross to look like. And I haven't read an Alex Cross James Patterson novel in years, And so I looked online and I was like, how many Alex Cross books are there? And there's 32. It already got renewed for a second season. The show is fantastic if you're looking for a binge. But it was taking me back to those Alex Cross novels that I loved, that I used to read every single one that came out. I think I read the first 10 or I don't remember how many I read. But anyway, and then I read a lot of James Patterson standalones and stuff like that. Well, I Google search because I was like, I want to get some James Patterson books. I love these stories. This is reminding me of what I used to read back in the day. The last James Patterson book I think I read was called Zoo, and I thought it was horrible. I think if I had read it a lot faster, it probably would have been better, but I thought it was horrible, okay? And so that was, for me, it was kind of I don't know, it's Debbie Macomber. I used to talk about her books. Maybe I should try another one of her books. I'll probably love it. Now, that was before I even liked cozy mystery. So now I would probably love the Debbie Macomber books. But anyway, so I was at Target with my cousin, I think I looked online and I was like, the top 10 best James Patterson books. There's all kinds of stuff written about James Patterson. And there's this like duology called Invisible. It's like Missing and Invisible, or Invisible is the first one. And so I ordered it on Amazon. And then I was at Target with my cousin Caroline, and I was like, I'm just going to look and see if they have any James Patterson books. And so they had one. It's like a newer one. It's called Missing, I think. And I was like, oh, this looks good. It's about like somebody missing in a small town. I was like, I got that. So I got that one. Well, then I had remembered about this series called Maximum Ride, and I thought that I had read book 1 in this series. So if you guys don't know what this is about, there's like 7 books in the series. They're supposedly new adult, which means they're like young adult, but they're also like written for adult. They come across as very teenager-y, if you want to know the truth. But it's about a group of kids that were at this place called the school, okay? And they're basically like, they have had like animal DNA put into their system, and so some of them have like, well, they all have wings and they can fly and things like that. And so that's what these are about, and they're like on the run from this school. But when I read the synopsis for it, I was like, I think I read the first one of these. Like, and I really, really liked it. I remember like reading one of the James Patterson books and I couldn't put it down. So I got this, I ordered this one, and I ordered the second one in the series. And I started it, and I was like, I don't think I read this one. And so when I went in and I looked, these are actually based on a James Patterson book duology that's called When the Wind Blows is the first one, and it's about this guy that worked for the school that protects them. Apparently he's in this one. He just made an appearance in this one. And the second one is called The Lake House. And I think I read the first one and not the second one. So I ordered those on Amazon. And those are coming. So when I finish this one, I'm going to go back and read those 2 that precede this series. And I'll go back and read it. But I have to tell you, sitting there late at night, reading this James Patterson book, which is cheesy, but kind of exciting at the same time. Like, I find myself, like, finishing a chapter, and I'm like, okay, just one more chapter. Just one more chapter. I haven't read like that in a long time, and it's really calming my nerves, and it's really, I don't know, it's really, really helping me a lot, and it's the self-care that I didn't know that I needed. So, my love of audiobooks, let me kind of explain the audiobook thing for a second. When I was growing up, I had, like, books on tape, but I also had the records where you would, like, turn the book with the record where it would beep. Do you guys remember those when you were a kid? Okay. And then that kind of went into, I loved, like, old-time radio shows, like The Shadow and things like that, and Fibber McGee and Molly. And my mom and I would listen to them all the time, and I would, like, order them online, and you could buy, like, the shows for, like, $9.99. They had Christmas shows and all this kind of stuff. And I loved it, like Jack Benny, and I can't remember who they would do like I have a version of Sorry Wrong Number. It was like they would do Playhouse, like, you know, Actors Playhouse and Suspicion and all these Alfred Hitchcock movies and stuff like that. And then I kind of loved listening to stories on tape. When I started working in treatment, one of my jobs was that I was the liaison between the treatment facility and the Department of Corrections for the state of Indiana. And so I would go to different aspects of the Department of Corrections. I would go to probation departments. I would go to jails and things like that. And I would do assessments on incarcerated people, and then, or people that were detained, to see if they were appropriate for long-term treatment. And so I would drive all over the state of Indiana. And when I did that, I started listening to a lot of books on tape. And in fact, the first ones I started listening to were the Patricia Cornwell ones. I think I listened like the first 3 or 4. And then I also listened to the Deja Dead, like the first 2 or something like that. And I remember that. But I listened to a lot of mysteries back then. And I loved driving around the country roads of Indiana listening to these mystery books on tape. And that kind of inspired me to start listening to audiobooks. I loved audiobooks for a long time, but I still read. When Audible came around, I wasn't the first person to find out about Audible. I heard a lot of YouTubers back in the day, like Tyler Oakley and Gigi Gorgeous, and they would had Audible sponsorships. And so I would be like, what is this Audible thing? And I think I think maybe through one of them is how I actually got my very first Audible sponsor, I never had an Audible sponsorship. My first Audible membership was, I think I bought it with a code. And ever since then, it took off. And it reminded me of like my mom reading to me. It reminded me of listening to the radio shows. It reminded me of the tapes that I would listen to when I would drive around Indiana. I just loved listening to a story, and I still do. I'm also right now listening to Paula Hawkins' The Blue Hour, which is the book, Peter's Book Club for November. And I'm halfway through it, so when I get done with that, the review will come over here. And I still love listening to audiobooks. But I kind of feel like last night I was going through my books, and I was like, well, which book can I pick after Christmas that I can read a chapter a day for 30 days? It's like, you know, and which book can I read next? And I'm going to go through all these James Patterson books, and I'm actually thinking about starting in January, I can never remember her name, but the A is for Alibi series, that there's 25 books in that series. I can't think of her name. Okay, anyways, Sue Grafton. Reading 2 books a month, and then also reading 2 of the Alex Cross books a month, and reading the whole Alex Cross series next year. I'm going to probably do that. If anybody wants to do it with me, they can. I'm going to probably make an announcement video about that. And the Sue Grafton books I will listen to on Audible, but the James Patterson books I will read in physical copybook and form. And I didn't know that sometimes you walk right into self-care, you know? And it's so funny that it took this advent calendar book and me talking about watching the show Cross, and me thinking about me and my friend going to the grocery store and getting these James Patterson books, okay, that are not the best written books in the entire world, but they're fun to read. It took that for me to realize what self-care looks like for me, or at least one small part of it, you know? And last night, I could have read for 4 hours straight, and I was like, I wanted to watch some shows, and so I finally put the books away, and I was in such a good mood. It like really eased my spirits, and I didn't realize, or I had forgotten, that books did that for me, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for these advent calendar books. They're not silly, they're fun. I'm having so much fun reading them. But these silly advent calendar books to remind me, and the memories of buying these James Patterson books to remind me of how much reading has, even in my childhood and in my adulthood, reading has, in any form, listening to an audiobook, reading a physical copybook, a graphic novel, or whatever. Even when I was growing up, reading the back of a cereal box, reading has always been a form of self-care for me. And I'm so grateful for it. Anyway, let me know what you're reading in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.